big things at stake, Rob. Both of these teams still very much alive in the playoff race. In fact, Jacksonville now, just a year removed, Rob, from Urban Meyer, not even a full year, is expected now, odds-on favorite to win their division. They're a game behind Tennessee. Tennessee 7-7. Jacksonville is 6-8 in the AFC South. But Rob, the news, Tennessee's falling apart. They've lost 4 straight. And now the news is that Ryan Tannehill is out for the rest of the season. So Jacksonville does have a advantage there. They've been playing good football lately. Have won their last 2. And I believe 4 of their last 5. So, and then you got the Jets, Rob, trying to get in 7-7. And Zach Wilson playing tonight instead of Mike White.
Yeah, there's a couple things. First of all, people who act like coaching doesn't matter, Chris. We just saw in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence looked terrible, right? Urban Meyer was doing everything except, like it was a money grab. I guess he wasn't serious about it. It just didn't seem like he was into it. And look at the turnaround. You just said it's not even a year, Chris. Remember how awful they were?
Oh, no. Look, and my colleague on First Things First, Nick Wright, has said this, but I agree. You almost have to write off that first year for Trevor Lawrence.
Almost.
It was that bad. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't – he just didn't have a chance. And as far as Urban Meyer, who obviously, Rob, has been a terrific college coach, if I hate to even say, it felt like it was more than a inability to coach, because obviously, again, he's been great at the college level. It felt like a lack of maturity and not a lack of this, but too much arrogance.
It was definitely
like, I can do whatever the heck I want. This ain't college, though.
I agree with that from the standpoint of the 2 things that hurt him right out the box was trying to hire the strength and conditioner coach, right, Chris?
From Iowa.
From Iowa.
Been accused of racism.
Exactly. Right? That was number 1, and the players let him know right away that ain't happening. He had to back down from that. And then trying to get Tim Tebow as front on the team, right? Like, that was the first 2 things out of the box.
But not the only 2. Remember, he kicked the kicker, right?
Yes.
At practice. I'm the ball coach. I can do what I want. It was something that he said.
Something
to the
like
kicker,
that, right.
Obviously, the situation in Columbus where he stayed overnight while the team flew back. And
got a co-ed on his lap, Chris.
Yeah,
he's doing a lap.
That's what I mean, Rob. Like it was, obviously, you think you can do whatever the heck you want, which you probably could in Columbus, right? But it's different with grown men who are making more money than you. And like I said, Rob, even kind of a lack of maturity as well. It was bad. But Trevor Lawrence, I like. I think he's going to be a star. I'm not ready to say superstar. We'll see.
Well, he was billed as a can't miss.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that.
And he's got the tools. He's got the size. He's got the tools. He's got it all. What about the Jets, though, Rob? Here's my quick thought. If you're trying to win, and obviously it was made easy for them, the decision, because Mike White is injured, right? Couldn't play tonight. If you have a chance to win this year, like get in the playoffs, the guy to play is Mike White, because he's just been playing better than Zach Wilson and appears to be better than Zach Wilson at this point in time. The players seem to like him better. The body language, everything is better with Mike White. However, and I know there's only 3 games left, but if the playoffs kind of are not a possibility at some point, I think you have to play Zach Wilson. And it might even be somewhat of a blessing in disguise that Wilson has to play tonight, because Rob, like, if their quarterback of the future is in that building right now, if it ain't Mike White, and look, he's played great. He might be able to be a stopgap. But my guess, Rob, is that Mike White is probably, or maybe slightly better. He's put up pretty good numbers. Taylor Heineke. You know what I'm saying? Like, You win some games. He's feisty. People like him, but you're not really getting to that Super Bowl contention level with Mike White or Taylor Heineke as your QB, unless you're just incredibly stacked all around them. So I think you got to try to build up Zach Wilson, as long as you have him in your building, because he might be your guy. He does have talent. You just got to teach him how to be a quarterback in the NFL.
I agree. I think it's a tough, slippery slope because they deep down know that Mike White's not that guy, Chris.
Right.
Because they
doesn't
just
mean
know.
he might not be a starter, right? A decent starter.
But if you really believe I'll give you the perfect example. The Seattle Seahawks signed Matt Flynn. He threw the 6 touchdowns, set the Packers. Remember that against the Lions, Chris? He had a big game. He played the last game. He had a great game, and he looked great. He has a record, the most touchdowns in passing class, better than Bart Starr and Brett Favre. It's Matt Flynn. Go look it up. He got a big deal, and he went to Seattle. And, Chris, he didn't even get the first year.
Russell Wilson beat him out. They gave him a big contract.
And they ate it.
Yep.
They ate it and said, you know what? We know we signed Matt Flynn. He was supposed to be the guy. We got this guy. And I'm saying if Mike White was that guy, Chris, you would do the same thing. If you really believe Mike White came out of nowhere, dropped in our laps, and he's going to be this guy, you don't care about what you just did. We saw Arizona, right, cut a quarterback, Chris, after 1 year, right?
Right.
They cut bait and said, no, they're going to go.
What you need to do if he's not that guy.
Plain and simple. What are you afraid of? You got to evaluate, Chris. This is where evaluation and talent, being able to identify talent. And I don't believe
Mike
they feel.
He's been good. He's been good. My thing, Rob, I just don't think he's the guy. You're looking for a star or at least an above average, right? That next tier at the very least. I don't think he's that. He might, like I said, he might be Taylor Heineke, but that's not, Taylor Heineke's fine until you really get the quarterback.
That ain't going to get you where you need to go, ultimately.
And that's what I think the situation there is. All right, Rob, let's get an interesting story on Pro Football Talk. And there have been rumblings of this, Rob. I'm going to have Rob G kind of summarize the story. But there has been talk in New England, believe it or not, among the fans, not coming out of the organization, at least that I've seen. Some fans are actually like, we need to get rid of Belichick. So, Rob G, tell us about the story, the column from Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk.
Sure. So Mike wrote this on the heels of that embarrassing loss last week to the Raiders, where not only did you have the infamous ending with the failed lateral, but it was just a series of miscues at the goal line, bad penalties. It was just not Patriot football that we've come to expect. And it's led to, as you mentioned, Chris, a groundswell of people saying, hey, when is Robert Kraft going to consider moving on from Bill Belichick? So Mike Florio talked about it, and here's one of the money lines in the column discussing the Patriots head coaching situation. Belichick surely would not be fired. Instead, word more likely would be circulated that Belichick is available to be hired away from the Patriots for fair compensation, and surely another team would be willing to give up a whirl for Bill Belichick, if that is, he's willing to coach elsewhere.
Rob,
Poppycock. I don't buy into any of it. I don't think that they're going to make that move. I think at some point Bill will decide what he wants to do, if he wants to retire or whatever. How old is Bill Belichick now? I know he's 67? Is he older than that, Rob G?
I think he's older than that.
Is he?
He is 70, yeah.
Because Pete Carroll,
he'll be 71 in April.
Okay, so he's 70. I don't know. I think he goes out. I don't believe he'll coach anywhere else. I believe that when they come to some sort of agreement, he'll say this is my last season or retire at the end of a season, and that'll be it. I'd be stunned if he's forced out or told to go somewhere else, and I don't think I just don't see it. He's been there too long. They had too much success. It's going to be his call. This is not Tom Landry. This is not a new owner buying a team and telling Tom Landry to get lost, because that was shocking, Chris, when that happened. But that was new ownership.
It wasn't just shocking. And Rob, I wasn't a Cowboys fan. I was actually, as you know, a Steelers fan growing up, and the Cowboys were their rival. But it was borderline offensive.
Right.
Am I right? Like, it was like, this dude is a pillar in the game, and you just fired him?
They just came in. I mean, that was Jerry Jones, and people reacted and said, he'll never win anything. You know what I mean? But he had Jimmy Johnson there.
I'm going to say this, Rob, and I agree with you that the notion of, regardless, I mean, you've been certainly much harder on Belichick than me as far as the cheating.
The cheating stuff, right.
Right. But the notion of firing Bill Belichick, it just feels untenable to me.
Right.
I mean, the guy.
I'm with you.
6 championships. Yeah, I mean, come on. That said, though, Rob, I look, you got to run a franchise. I mean, you're trying to move forward. And I do feel like Kraft needs to sit down with Belichick at the end of this season, which obviously probably will. But I think the talk needs to be, Rob, like, Bill, we need new offensive coaches. I mean,
I think that's all legit.
Tried it.
I think that's all legit.
And I mean, you cannot. I think it was hubris. It was arrogance, Rob, to put a second-year quarterback in the hands of freaking Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. And that's not because they were bad head coaches, because we've seen, like, Josh McDaniels has been a bad head coach, but a great offensive coordinator. It was because they were defensive guys. Patricia, his whole career, and Judge, a special teams guy, his offense with the Giants was horrendous. Right?
One of the worst we've ever seen.
Absolutely. So that, to me, now here's the rub, Rob. What if Kraft has that talk, as you said he should, as I said he should? I'm sure most people think he should. And Bill is like, no. Look, these are my guys. I'm gonna do it the way I've been doing it, blah, blah, blah. And he just kind of refuses to make changes, or, brings in another guy that's not an offensive guy or whatever. That's when it gets tricky. And again, I certainly wouldn't see them firing him. But maybe, as Pro Football Talk said, Rob, that's when maybe, I don't know, is there a mutual parting of the ways? Is there another team wanting? Because as great as Belichick is, and last year he got him to the playoffs with a rookie coach because his defense is always strong. And this year, the reason they're even in the hunt, Rob, they've had bad quarterback play, period. A lot of it because of Patricia, in my opinion. But their defense is legit. So,
and that's his thing.
That's what he does. So, but you see what I'm saying, though, Rob? I agree. Like, ideally, Kraft has the talk. Belichick's like, all right, cool. And he gets some offensive guys in there. And he's back. But if he refuses, then I do think Kraft may be in a tough situation. And that's when maybe a mutual parting of the ways, or I don't know what Pro Football Talk was talking about, Rob, with maybe, a team's wants him, and
that's different.
You're trading for draft.
Right. I get that. I just don't think he'll be fired. You know what I mean?
Nah,
I don't.
That doesn't look good for anybody. Right? It doesn't look good for anybody. And here's the thing, quickly, Rob. If you're the Patriots and you do part ways with him, you have to be ready. And I've been critical of Belichick. He's 9 seasons without Brady. 2 times he's made the playoffs. This might be 2 and 10, right? However, you have to understand, if you're the Patriots, if you let him go, especially if you let him go to a good team that's pretty much, that's pretty close, or has the tools at least in place, he might win a Super Bowl somewhere else.
Yep.
Right? Like, you got to be ready for that, for him to leave, win a Super Bowl, and then you may look bad. And so that's a part of it.
The other thing too, real quick, let's real quick. People forget how terrible the Patriots were, Chris, for a long time. They were a bad franchise. You know what I mean?
Until Tom Brady took over.
And okay.
It's true. I mean, they were 5-11
Bill
Belichick's first year.
Parcells took them to the Super Bowl too.
Right. They had.
okay.
I mean, they were deep. They had a few deep.
That's what I'm just saying. Like they went to the Super Bowl with Bill Parcells.
Yeah, they were
like,
bad early on.
But they were a bad franchise. Yeah.
0-2.
All
Yeah,
right.
when Brady took over.